Welcome everybody to my chess stream. It's Friday the 16th of September 2016. 16. What's up guys? I'm streaming on Twitch and lichess. We're playing a Sparkle Horse as usual on lichess.org. We've got a whole list of challengers ready to go. Our old friends Shaw and Shaw 007, The Saddest Troll, M47, Theoretical Battle, Royal Python, and WGM Alexandra. You guys are ready to go today. It's Friday, and I don't know, it's your last chance to beat me this week. Unless you're going to play my simul on Sunday, which is... Sunday is at 6 p.m. or 1800 hours Central European Summertime. Looks like we've got audio, video, and the stream should be going up on lichess any moment. I need just a minute to kind of catch my breath here. I was running around. And just say good morning. Hello, Saronche. We missed you yesterday. Good to see you, man. Good to see you with the blue letters. And much easier to read because you usually have green. Alright, guys. Shaw and Shaw's first list, but I'm going to make him wait till second to play. Nice relaxing game with Saddest Troll, 960 chess. 1800 hours. Is that right? 1800 hours on Sunday is not my simul. I'm using military time. Yeah. Sounds like military time to me. That's universal. I mean, then I don't have to like say 6 p.m. Alright. Am I right about that? Or did I change the time again? That is the correct time. Saronchi had internet problems yesterday. Yes, so Troll, you never play in my simul, do you? You have before, I'm sure. A little confused, guys. It's kind of hot here. I'm thinking about getting the fan, but I think we'll manage without it. Weather.com said it was supposed to be getting cooler starting today here, but I haven't seen any sign of that happening. Alright, Shaw and Shaw, Saddest Troll. We're going to get started. Saddest Troll, chess 960. I'm white. We've got a knight on A1, which is always a problem. So, I think an English opening with this setup would be pretty good, because it gives both knights the ability to get in behind that c-pawn with like c4, knight c3, knight c2, for example, and the rook behind them also fairly decently placed. I'm a little bit worried about the bishop situation, though. If I do an English opening fianchetto, there's some problems with the the G bishop on G1. So I want the whole family to be happy here. Whether or not I play C4 probably doesn't make a big difference. I guess you could play... You could play a kind of closed Sicilian sort of setup with like F4, G3, E4, and both bishops would be raking on the queen side. You try to imagine what kind of normal opening your position could sort of transition to. It doesn't hurt. So a kind of F4, in English where I play F4 later on. 1800 equals 6 p.m. Is that not what I said? Not 1800 hours. 1800 hours. That's nonsense. It's like military time, man. You never watched a war movie or something about the Second World War? Sergeant Troll, report to my office at 1800 hours. Alright. C5. And we're going to play both knights in the game early. That's Sunday, guys. We're doing the time. This time I'll at a disputed time of correctness. Anyway, 6 p.m. Central Eastern European Summer Time. can't say it. We're playing the English opening. Well, remember where our kings are before you do anything hasty there, troll. Like try to play d5. Not really recommended. So, if you guys want to contact me, I notice I have a message here on lichess. Probably the best way to contact me is by email. But again, you can use the lichess messages. Not quite as secure. Don't send any top secret material via lichess messages. I don't know now. I mean, E3 looks a little bit. E3 looks a little bit weakening if I'm going to play like G3 and F4 as well. So I'm thinking about repositioning my rook back to B1 here. But I already see some issues. Serious issues here. Yikes. Wow. This is pretty upsetting, actually. Alright, maybe E3 isn't so bad after all. Knight E3. Actually, it's going to block my bishop on G1 for sure. It is a concrete way. I don't know. Knight E3 allows like Knight C6, Knight D4. Bishop H6 is not a move I was prepared for. We woke up this morning, we weren't planning on that. Sergeant Troll. Military are stupid. I had the feeling that Troll wouldn't really be into that. But I'm teasing him anyway. Alright. Troll never watched any movies. Alright, Troll. Well, let's not be in denial of the fact that this type of time usage exists in the real world. We can live in a fantasy world if we want to, but F5, G3. Troll's in a bad mood today. I have the feeling. Been kind of moody lately. We are gonna play with this blocked in bishop. Probably F4 and bishop G2. Actually, I could have just snapped the pawn on B7. See, Troll's all upset about the military time reference, and he's not paying attention to, and neither am I, actually, to this. I have the excuse that I just woke up, though. And I don't think that Troll has that excuse. He's hanging his B7 pawn, unless that was an intentional sacrifice. Last move I had to defend against bishop takes C1, but now there's no excuse. Alright. Come out with your hands up, Troll. He's not going to like that. Reference to violence. Now bishop G2. We have a particularly odd position here. Particularly odd position with the king here, and nothing to defend D3 in the instance of like bishop G2. He could play knight E5 or knight B4. So my entire plan with bishop G2 is starting to look faulty because of E3 and the weakening of my pawn structure. I thought this was going to be easy, but Troll has really created a lot of problems for me with this early bishop H6. You've been demoted to private, Troll, for denial of reality. Alright. Knight C6. Anyway, the point was I wanted to show everybody that the simul is at 6 p.m. or 1800 hours on Sunday. And we'll try to play up to 25 players, but it could be as few as just 20, depending on how much time I have. We usually will be trying to aim for 20 players. F4. This is a little bit weakening looking. It's so strange that our kings are in the center here. So what's up, everybody? Send me a message on the Twitch chat. Somebody besides Gladys Troll and Royal Python, welcome. Don't let those guys hog up the chat room there. Do it to you every time. Royal Python, yesterday, I was curious about your blitzing the opening in the Lopez there. And not surprisingly, that the setup that you used is pretty obscure. I was curious about the moves in particular, rook e8 and rook c8, because you played it very quickly, like it was like the main line or something, and I thought that rook e8 was a little bit strange, and it turns out that the only game I found was one obscure game between two pretty good players. It was, what is this guy's name? Shyam. He's an Indian GM. He's actually in Zalakarosh, where I played this June, but what is his first name? So anyway, he beat Elizabeth Pates in that she played like you, rook e8, rook c8. It is an odd setup for black. It's not very common, but playable. And my idea of that game was particularly interesting yesterday. My idea of doing like pawn takes pawn on e5 and knight d5 is a new idea from the games that I saw. I mean, I may be missing some games, but it looks pretty like a good plan for white, and white is slightly better. So I spent all my time in the opening in a game yesterday against Royal Python trying to figure out what was going on, but at least I kind of made the right decision. So playing e4 now, primarily with white, and trying to learn some new stuff. You're out of your opening knowledge when you played rook c8. Yeah, rook e8 is a kind of rare move, but rook c8, as far as I know, was only ever played by Elizabeth Pates in that one game. But nobody did in the 3 or 4 games. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. There were more than one. There was like 3 games. But it was the only game with the good players, over 2,400. But anyway, nobody played pawn takes pawn, and it looks like the critical line. It's kind of interesting. So, if you read the former world champions book, Max Uwe's book on the middle game, this exact plan is discussed. He gives an example of a game that Alekhine played with white, and I'd like to find that game, but I don't have the book. I don't have the book on me, so to speak. Troll, this really, you're trying to hurt me. I'm getting the distinct impression you're trying to hurt me here. Very aggressive play with Troll, king in the center and going for it. Maybe I should castle queenside here. It's highly unusual in the English opening, but it seems appropriate in this particular position. We've got perfect coordination. Look, bishop, bishop, rook, rook, knight, knight. Everyone is organized into groups, which isn't a coincidence, oddly enough. It is a coincidence that's the starting position of the 2 bishops, but I've found over my years playing chess that putting the like pieces next to each other is a solid way of coordinating those pieces. They work very well next to each other. It's not a coincidence. It's not to be cute. A lot of strong players will oftentimes gravitate toward placing their pieces in that way. Now, I think bishop g2 would make sense. It would weaken c4 a bit. I think we're going to give up c4. We've kind of like written that off. If you try any kind of undermining, I'm already, sold on it. This is yours. If you want to trade, like classic closed Sicilian exchange of pawns, like e4, reverse closed Sicilian. I have no means of playing b3. I can't protect my c4 pawn. And I'd like to play b3. If I did, I wouldn't queenside castle, though. The whole game I've been plagued by this problem of no way to protect my knight on c3, because my bishop, my dark-squared bishop, which is usually over on the queen side, is on g1, and that's what's weird about this, the whole position, basically. Playing in English, where my queen's bishop is over on the king side, and the inability to control the dark squares like b2. I'd normally put it on somewhere like d2 or b2 if this was a normal English opening, kind of closed English opening. Fortunately, the heat wave is over. Yeah, rain coming. That's what I saw in the forecast. Maybe it hasn't made its way out here to Hungary yet. Uwe the middle game, 32 euro reprint, 2012. Really, there's a euro reprint, 2012. I mean, it's 32 euros. It's a reprint, 2012. Did you just look that up? Wow, that's fantastic. I think it was an American publisher who republished that the last time they started publishing it. Sid Pickard and Sons or something like that. I don't remember, but an American chess book publisher. Anyway, that's a fantastic book, guys, or series of 2 books. If you're serious about like learning the game, highly recommend it. I'd like to know what game that was, though. If anybody wants to do a little research, happens to have that book, because I don't have it on me. It's back in the United States, and I don't recall Alekhine's opponent for that game. Man, we've got issues with this queenside thing. There's like nothing I can do about it. He's just gonna have to sacrifice his man, this is brutal. What am I gonna do? Totally freaking out now. I've got no way to deal with this. The long diagonal. No way to deal with the long diagonal, guys. Pawn takes pawn. I guess that's a temporary way of dealing with a long diagonal. Bishop takes, but I have d4. Troll very incisive today. Knight takes was an interesting try. Now I must play b3. We're not going to b2. Maybe I should think about it, though. Seriously, it looks a little crazy to put my king on that diagonal, but it does protect the knight. Protect the knight. So, Mr. Senor Troll. Senor Troll is lost. He's lost a little bit of his. He's lost a little bit of his advantage here. We managed to kind of stave him off. I could take either way, actually. Senior Troll is getting faster. Yeah, I feel like he's getting faster. It may just be my perception, but in the old days he would have lost on time by now. And he's just hanging in there. Black has a queenside majority. I mean, that could be something. What do we call it? Is that the king side or the queen side? I don't know, but we have better structure, but black has this outside majority. Let's just call it outside. The outside majority. A new term in chess. Finally. Red meat. And good game to Troll. Good game, Troll. You had a lot of little chances, and I thought I was right on the verge. But maybe, besides the fact that there may be other improvements, I thought it was more interesting to play like knight takes e5. Perhaps it's not a big deal. If we look at this, like knight takes e5 here, putting pressure on c4 and d3, and I probably would play some h3, I guess. Oh, you can't play knight takes because of bishop takes b7. Never mind. Alright. Bishop takes b7. You can play it. Maybe you can play it. Look at that. Knight g4. Bishop g1. Bishop takes c3. And then this is coming in. This knight on a4 in some lines. What's going on? When it's giving this evaluation, what is this variation? Black is winning, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty scary. Maybe knight takes e5, troll. So, okay. Shansha sent me a message about yesterday's game, I guess. Alright. Sorry, Shansha, you dropped down in the list and I forgot about you. You'll play next game? I just took the next guy in line. Shansha, you've had internet problems. What's up, man? Did you change your internet? Because I don't remember you having internet issues in the springtime. Saronchi looked it up. Yeah. If nobody has that book, it's going to be hard to look it up. I guess I could go through all of Alekhines' games in the white side of the Roy Lopez and find it, you know. Simple process of elimination. Would probably take me like 20 minutes. Maybe a little longer. But he didn't have that many games on the white side of Lopez, so... You know, switching to mostly d4. Playing more d4 than e4 in his career. It's kind of weird playing normal chess again after that first chess 960. I'm expecting my queen to be like on a8 or something. We're playing the English defense here. Something I would often do against c4. Welcome everybody. Funky Friday. Hungarian folk music. Yeah, it's really weird. I did the Wednesday stream, and I don't know why, but for some reason, Wacky Wednesday or whatever, for some reason I do not even have a clue why. I'm having trouble uploading that stream to YouTube from Twitch, and I was like, is it something about the title that YouTube doesn't like that I called it Wacky Wednesday? Am I like breaking some kind of copyright laws or something? I tried to take it out and it still wouldn't go through, so I don't know what it is, but... Queen c2. Alright, let's start and think about this for a minute. This is actually a move that I always sort of had a little problem with. Because all the people, you know, who write books on the English defense generally don't give a lot of explanation about like plans against this particular move. It's sort of a forgotten variation that I have encountered on a couple of occasions. So, not really sure what the best plan is against this. I don't think I can play f5 in such a position, which is a standard plan. Knight c6 is tempting, but because white is weakened the d4 square, but what, you know, is the point after something like knight c6, knight f3? Yeah, I guess I've played queen h4. Now I'm finding my memory slowly coming back. So we've played queen h4 to put pressure on the e4 pawn. There were some strange games I've had. After queen h4, bishop d3. I'm thinking maybe I even played a game with white in this position. I might have even played a game with white after queen h4, bishop d3, f5. I remember there's something wrong with black's position after queen h4, bishop d3, f5. Knight f3 is the problem, and then queen g4 attacking g2 is leading to some serious complications. So I don't remember. It's very complicated. I'm not sure if it's even good for black. And maybe we should just play something a little bit safer. Wasting a lot of time here. Now the point is that he's taking back on c3 with a pawn, in case you were wondering. And it's a kind of classical Nimzo, where like white recaptures with the pawn, you know, a Nimzo idea. So we could play just bishop takes c3, b takes c, and play a kind of Nimzo structure. Although it looks a little bit passive for black. Opted to play a neutral move here. Gladys Troll said I wouldn't have won that game for black if I were you and lose for white if I were myself. You certainly had a lot of dynamic possibilities. In the last game, as I said, I think the defining thing was that absence of the queen's bishop from my queen side, because when I went into it saying that, oh, I'll play it like in English, I didn't really think about how much that would affect my position, that not having any dark squared bishop to protect the dark squares on the queen side. And you quickly saw the way Troll jumped on it with bishop h6. Also, he didn't have to do that. He could have simply played straight away like bishop g7, queen h8 on the long diagonal, but I think bishop h6 was interesting. So if I had it to do over again, I probably wouldn't go into the English. Site update in progress. Shansha says not internet problems, it's more about Windows problems. Oh, you have the automatic upgrade to Windows 10 that I love so much. Yeah, we're all big fans of Windows here. Microsoft. Alright, well, we're way behind on time. Knight e7 was... Knight e7 is a pretty passive move, honestly. Alright, I'm going to play passively. And just try to play like a kind of hippo where I don't have the head of the hippo over here. There's no, if you want to call this the head. We're playing a hippo without the two bishops. Basically just half a hippo. With the bishop fianchetto on the queen side, and looks reasonable for black though. Wait and see what he does. White should be better here. White has more space. I'm kind of happy that he played knight f3 though, because it's going to take him time to like reorganize and play f4 if he really wants to get that huge pawn center to try to take a lot of space. Bishop d3. Now, knight g6 is one idea, but I think it's kind of asking for white to play h4. He's not castled, so knight d7, probably the right move. I could play c5, c5, d5, e5. I guess knight d7 looks more solid. A true hippo style. Very incisive opening play. Yesterday, M47 played an absolutely amazing idea of d4 with white in English, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, blockade with e5 is possible here. Not sure if that's really what I want to do. The other possibility is like castles. I think we'll keep our options open. Try to close the position against the two bishops. That's generally what we're aiming for here. I don't know where my time went, honestly. Time seems to go really fast when I first log in. The early games. This is kind of like where I was at against Royal Python yesterday, where I just used like 5 minutes in the first 10 moves. You found a PDF file about the UVA book. You're going to have to find like 200 PDF files, and it's not going to be easy to find it. We're better off just looking up all of Alekhine's games with the Roy Lopez with white. But it was interesting that neither of... This is absolutely best move by white, knight h4. He finds that. But M477 said you were like a 1700 DWZ rating in Germany. But I mean, dude, knight h4 is an extremely strong move. Yesterday you played very incisively in the opening against me. Knight h4 is not a move the average player comes up with. You know, this is a very advanced move, and it looks scary because you're putting knight in an unprotected square there, heading for f5, breaking with f4. Perfect move. Absolutely best. So I'm just going to try to block the whole position and hold it together somehow. But knight h4 is monstrous. This is absolutely critical. He's played 2 draws against me and played the game perfectly in the opening yesterday, then made a terrible mistake. So out of 4 games, he's made 1 bad move, basically, I thought, which is really impressive for his rating. Shaveman always looks like a baby. There was an article in BBC about baby faces this week, BBC Science or whatever, online. And babyface people always get what they want. I guess that was the moral of the story. I don't know. Maybe it's pseudoscience. Alright, man. I'm out of here. I feel like Petrosian. This is a really insipid position for black and very passive, but I'm not sure if I want to castle kingside into the attack, as they say. Maybe I should castle kingside. It just looks like unforgiving position. I was afraid he would play g3 and f4. Now f4 right away, that move is more debatable because the e5 square is left open. So f6 is possible. But I don't have to do anything. I could just castle queenside or castle kingside. Running out of time, though. Should I just castle kingside here? Should probably play f6 first. I'm in relentless time pressure against M47, and he's got no rated game. He doesn't like rated games, he said. Can you explain in more detail why knight h4 is so good? Well, it's like stopping me from moving my knight on e7, threatening to go to f5, preparing f4 or g3 and f4, and the only pawn break on the board other than a4, a5, which is absolutely critical for white. It's the only good way of organizing f4 with a multi-purpose move that does other stuff too. So I think it's just an excellent multi-purpose move. Castle's kingside is a mistake. I should play instead either f6, knight e5, or castle's queenside. He said I had some connecting problems while playing yesterday. I don't recall. Oh, I don't know why White didn't play e5 there. This is just a blunder by me to allow e5. So perhaps I should play knight e5 now. f6 weakens my structure. Although knight g6... Now knight g6 may be okay. We have a much less space, very little counterplay. Consider taking with the f-pawn here. Excuse me, if he tries to checkmate me brute force, maybe I should play f6. I have queen d8 at some point. Also bishop c8. We're going to need to play knight e5, obviously. And White's at a bit of a dead end. Not a complete dead end, but this bishop. We want to go pawn hunting around here. f6. Give my king a way out. And to get the king, he can run across the board to safety. Among other things, get the rook to the h file. Maybe here. We're always taking with the rook. Rook is preferred. Just dropped his queen. Strange move. All right. Thanks for the game. Theoretical Battle is another new account. He's up to 2,200 now. Knight h4 thing is really cool. I probably wouldn't have realized to consider it. Spassky. Well, actually, you guys really have to know. I don't know. Royal Python, do you play either side of the Nimzo Indian? Because maybe for me it's so interesting and natural because it reminds me of a variation of the Nimzo Indian, which was pretty well known. Hübner's variation. And knight h4 is a idea. No, Spassky's favorite move. Like knight h4, he loved to play that. Spassky's still alive, so don't have to talk about him in the past tense. We can say Spassky, he loves to play knight h4. Spassky is still alive, isn't he? Did he? He didn't die, did he? Please don't tell me Spassky died. Did Spassky pass away? Man, I'm having a terrible memory now. Somebody died recently. A lot of chess players have become deceased in the last... Somebody please tell me if Spassky's still alive. Am I crazy? I was like, Spassky's still alive. Then I was like, wait a minute. Did Spassky die? I can't recall. Feels bad. Alright, knight a6. Spassky's alive. I don't know. Yeah, I'm freaking out. There was somebody famous that died recently. I was terrible. Panic that it was that it was Spassky. I'd be so embarrassed if I didn't remember. Alright. Knight a6. I feel better. Spassky loves knight h4. We'll put him in the present tense. Breathe a sigh of relief. But some famous player passed away not that long ago, and I can't recall who it was. Not an American, or there's a lot of lesser known players passed away from the American chess scene in the last 5 years. But the last couple of years, I should say. But international chess stars of Spassky's level are, you know, not something you run across every day. Korchnoi died. Thank you. Oh my God. So I'm like confusing Korchnoi's death with Spassky. Relatively similar generation. Alright, bishop g5. f6 is a move, but queen e8 is better. Theoretical battle. Getting theoretical. Yesterday I kind of confused him with a6 and c6, which is a pretty obscure setup in the King's Indian. Played a4. Actually, he reacted fairly well after the initial move a4. You guys here, I played c6 and then a6 next move, and theoretical battle castle kingside and played a4 against a6, which I think is not so great. Then he reacted pretty well, and we ended up in an equal-ish position where he blundered. Does it really matter if he dies this year or next? Man, troll. You're called the Gladys troll? I think it matters for him. He might want a few extra days. And it would even be better if he lived like another 5 or 10 years. 79 is not that old. I know because I'm almost there. Yeah, Korchnoi died this spring. Don't remember when it was exactly, but was it this spring? Not long ago. But Korchnoi is, I believe, was a little older than Spassky. A few years anyway. But Spassky's knight h4, man, he loved to do that. It's a common idea in the Nimzo. He played a fantastic game against Mark Taimanov, which I've done numerous videos and lectures about and taught in my lessons a lot, in a Lopez with knight h4. The what's it called? Norwegian variation of the Lopez with like a6, bishop a4, b5, bishop b3, knight a5. That line Spassky used. Fantastic effect. Knight h4. I mean, the idea is multifaceted. Yeah, to restrict the idea of black playing knight g6 because you'll play knight f5, to threaten knight f5 yourself in some circumstances, to play f4 for white, which is Spassky's big love of the King's Gambit, of course, comes into play there. But any kind of Nimzo Indian sort of structure as we had in the last game. F4 is an absolutely fundamental pawn break. All right, so this position, Kasparov played this. The older moves, the Alexander Chernayevs favored b6 and c6, but queen e7 is kind of an unusual move, I think, because of this idea, to play queen d6 here. And I've definitely had this at least in one game. I thought you were in your 30s. That's what we aim for. Nobody knows. It's a huge secret. I'm actually an extraterrestrial. And I don't age the same as humans. If you don't believe me, you can ask Kirsan. I had to actually consult him when I didn't know how to fill out my title, request for FIDE because I was an extraterrestrial. And so it was lucky that Kirsan actually was in charge of FIDE when I became an international master, because it really, obviously helped me a lot that he was available personally to help me. Okay, so c5, we have classic idea here. Luckily, my queen is protecting the knight on a6, so that kind of comes in handy. c5 is a typical idea. I think I want to say that this might be a move, but it's been a long time since I played this position for black. I want to say knight b4 and knight back, bouncing back to c6 and like back toward the center. c6 is a classic bishop takes a6 type of thing. I played it. I just meant to demonstrate c6, and I played it. That's awesome though, because it's actually not a bad move. Knight b4 is interesting, but I didn't mean to play c6, but it's fine. It's fine, man. We have this structure all the time, this variation. But of course, Theoretical Battle saw knight d2. He knows about that. And all right, we have a time advantage for once. Black has the half-open B file. I've played quite a few games with white in this kind of line against International Master Walter Wittmann from Austria. And also Eugene Perelstein. I had a game or two with white, I think. So, in fact, there was a game I had that was published in Chess Life by Michael Rode. Who was I playing? Wittmann, I guess. So I understand this position from the perspective of both sides, and I think that gives you a really fair viewpoint. When you can play a position from both sides, you have an objective ability to look at the position. So we have the half-open B file, some compensation there. Yes, I have broken pawns, but I also have a white-squared bishop. He didn't overlook, bishop takes h3 last move, which I was hoping to get in. So we have the bishop pair, half-open file, and maybe some ability to generate some kingside threats. Is queen h4 the best move? Should I play simply like bishop e6? Bishop e6. I like this better. It's developing, connecting the rooks. It's more fundamental. Not necessarily like I want to just chop the knight off, although that's something I could consider. I think we need to play with everything we've got here to offset this obvious, long-term weakness that I've incurred. Octopus Rampage. Love the name, man. Reptiloids. Knight d6. Is it reptiloids or reptilians? Did Kirsan say which kind of aliens abducted him? I'm not sure if he was specific. It was the gray aliens or the reptilian ones. Not sure. But as I said earlier, that's the only way, you know, Kirsan is helping me to cover up that question, you know, we have about my age. This is a tricky situation now. I'd love to have an open diagonal for the bishop, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind playing e4 so my king is safer. Tricky. Ooh, those bishops look good. Bishop d5. I'm going to drop a pawn or something. I think it's more complicated than that. This is a monster piece. Absolute monster. Speaking of aliens. What a bishop. This is worth 4 points of material. 4.25. I don't know. It's worth a lot. This is a superpower. And so, rook f2. That's a very nice move. Pawn takes f4. Rook takes f4. Pawn takes f4. Bishop takes f4. Slicing bishops. All right, we got to open it up for these bishops. e4 is nice, but it just closes the lines. Very subtle threat here. Queen g3. It's a nice knight on d6, but I'm not sure that this is good for white. Got to be very careful about long-term prospects. I also have rook b8. So I think the problem is too many weaknesses on the king side for white. h3 may have made the critical difference. When did white play that move? Don't recall. What was h3? When did you play h3? Pretty early on. Okay, no, that's an opening move. Right, move 10. Yeah, you got to play that early on. Okay, so he's letting me mate him in one. I was like, that's weird. I didn't think you could play queen e1. So the bishops win the battle of structure versus two bishops. Shah and Shah, I owe you a game. Sorry for the delay there, buddy. Okay, I'm white against Mr. Shansha. He's much scarier when he's white. Playing e4. I love the way you comment the game and the moves and the possibilities. Thank you, man. So, yeah, I was thinking I'm giving away all my secrets. Isn't that wonderful? e4, c5. If you guys want to donate to the stream or to my PayPal, to support the stream, support the YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube, and support me for giving away all my knowledge, which is absolutely crazy. Feel free to do so. I've got a PayPal button on the stream. If you guys could donate $5 a year, it would be awesome. Just to buy me a new mouse. We need a new mouse. We need to get the computer tuned up. What else? That's about it for right now. We've got to pay for the internet, our expenses, buy food, support my family, my extended family, the various charitable contributions I make with your money. I'm just kidding, guys. Having a little fun, but it's serious, though. If you can support us, it does help. So a6. Yeah, so Schansha always plays the Najdorf. And I've been playing bishop c4 every time. I need a second system against the Najdorf, and I don't have it, to be honest. We're going to try something a little different. I don't normally play this line, but I really need to start to work on something as an alternative to bishop c4. I think in modern chess, it's really important that you have more than one option available. Everybody's preparing their databases, and my games are in lists on every chess game website. I mean, in ChessBase. And my last tournament, I really felt that I'm getting out prepared, and also I'm also too predictable. So now Schansha played knight c6 here, which is interesting because, as far as I recall, normally in the f4 Najdorf, people don't put the knight on c6. Najdorf players don't normally put the knight on c6. They love to not put the knight on c6. Queen c7. How else can we defend this pawn on e5, actually? After f4, e5, knight f3, which is main line, I'm thinking queen c7 here to defend e5. Actually, just knight d7. Yeah, I mean, knight d7 is the main line, I guess. So Schansha sort of transposing to more like weird classical setup. I would be more likely to play this with black, but he's played a6, so it's like a combination of classical Sicilian and a6, which is kind of a bit weird. Although it doesn't look outright bad. Both moves are somewhat reasonable. If I play bishop c4, I did have a game in Romania years ago in an IM tournament. I mean, this would be the position, like some people play f4 against the classical, and then you play e5, knight f3. But here Schansha's played a6, so it's like a6 is a somewhat unnecessary move in this kind of position. It looks like a normal classical with f4. He's played a6 unnecessarily. And I've spent 2 minutes to try to talk about the position, think about it, talk to yourself. It's a useful technique. If you don't know the theory cold, you want to kind of talk yourself through the position logically. I don't mind using a little extra time. We had a discussion about that yesterday to try to just acclimate myself to the position. And then once I find the right plan, we can move a little bit faster. Bishop c4 is very tempting. However, bishop e7, I think bishop e7, castles black will be fairly comfortable. So perhaps we also have to take in consideration the active possibilities afforded black here with the knight on c6 to play like bishop g4 and knight d4 or something like that. Can I play bishop e3? That looks like an active move. We always lose a tempo when he takes on f4. What would an f4 professional do here? Alright, I'm going to give myself to about 3 minutes to make the move, because I really want to choose the right plan. I think this is really the critical moment where we decide where to put the pieces. And pawn takes pawn, actually. Wait a minute. Pawn takes pawn. After all this like deep thought, I finally like decide to start looking at pawn takes pawn. That's what I was talking about yesterday. He just took back. So all this deep thought, and I just take pawn takes pawn. Interesting knight g4 there, Schansha. To go for knight g4. And now we've got an ending where we're slightly better. The black king's a little sketchy. So this looks promising. Easier to play with less time too. But Paschall violating my... Yesterday I gave a big lecture about not playing too quickly. He's sort of doing the same thing, playing quickly. Quickly is the priority here. Knight g5, bishop e6 could be one way to play. Black also has this sometimes. Bishop c4. Oh, you were mentioning that. Yeah, Evelyn Wass says, oh, you shaved. Yes. Yesterday. So, bishop e4 is a possibility. Maybe we want to think about, like, simply bishop g5. Kind of very, very basic threat of knight to d5. I'm a little bit unconvinced by bishop g5. I mean, you have to admit there are other squares for that piece that even bishop d2 to guard the d2 knight. I mean the c3 knight with bishop d2. So bishop g5 looks a little bit artificial. It actually blocks knight g5 ideas, so it's not easy move to play. I'm getting in time pressure. I'm feeling that I have to rush now. But it's so funny that I sat there for like 3 minutes trying to find the right move for white, and at the last possible instant, right before I was about to make another move, I was like, holy shit, I can just play pawn takes pawn on e5. This is the obvious quote-unquote refutation of Paschall's position. That didn't occur to me because normally I don't like to make that kind of exchange. You know, I'm biased. I don't want to... You know, I just don't want to exchange my f4 pawn for a pawn on d6. It's solidly in my way of thinking about chess that I don't want to make moves like that usually. So I was just blocking it out. Now he looks like he's probably okay here. Now, I don't think that bishop g5 was necessarily that dangerous. Knight d5... Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, bishop takes g5, knight takes g5. I'm a little concerned about losing on time here. With this time, we really need like a minute to play the game effectively. I don't think I have much here. Don't think I have too much. This is a weak move. I'm just trying to keep the position simple because I'm running out of time. So I did not punish Paschall here. I decided to play a very simple plan to avoid any kind of danger. But I think he's okay in this position without any questions asked. Black is quite solid in this position. He can't castle. It's a slight disadvantage that he'll have to live with, but his bishops are good, and I would evaluate the position as approximately equal. h5 is a nice move. Really nice move, man. I don't think I can afford to give him too much over there. This is a 2-star move, h5, activating the rook with the bishops. Exclamation point, for sure. Black is probably slightly better now. Slightly better with 5 minutes more on the clock. Do have a good knight on d5. But pretty much every other facet of the position doesn't favor me. Even his king being in the center could be an advantage now that he's found a way to activate his rook with the rook on the h-file. Bishop g5 and bishop takes f6 was a totally harmless plan by me. Basically chosen at random as I started to get into time pressure to keep it simple. So we do have to start playing a little bit faster. I talked a lot about the fact that the position should take priority over time, but obviously there's a breaking point, you know, where you just can't use up all your time, so you're in desperate time pressure, and that's kind of the borderline where I got to in this game. If the time pressure starts to affect, you know, you from playing your best and panicking and stuff, then you best not putting yourself in that situation. I rarely lose on time, but I do make blunders because of the time pressure. But I'm very disappointed in this game. I had a good game, I think. But philosophically, you could go back to the opening and look at what I did with pawn takes pawn, and maybe make an argument for the fact that there might have been something better. There might have been something better for me than going into the ending, because the ending may just not be that much advantage for white. Maybe we can play an effective middle game where his knight isn't that well placed on c6, and he's played a6. If you compare the resulting positions to lines of the classical Sicilian, where black plays knight c6 instead of a6. Again, knight c6, f4 in the classical Sicilian, you're not going to ever play a6 for black in that position. And so there is a real possibility. I think we took Shansha by surprise, and he just reacted clumsily, like with knight c6 and a6, or knight c6 rather, not really knowing what he was doing. But it paid off because I didn't really know what I'm doing either, you know, and I decided to do the exchange, which probably is a slight advantage for white, but then this plan of bishop g5 was just not really effective. So I think we go back to this point here where we reach the endgame. Bishop g5, I'm unconvinced by this move. I need to find something better there. Alright, so f6. Fairly solid move. I was thinking knight e3. Don't have a lot of time. But this is much more interesting to me than like having this horrible bishop on e2. We have two reasonable knights, and our bad bishop is active. What is black to do? Hard to avoid the exchange of pieces here. You should just go with the flow. Go with the flow. He has some white square weaknesses. I don't like f6. What was he supposed to do there? Maybe h4, just pull the trigger on h4. Rook h6, maybe something like that. But f6 blocks his bishop a little bit. Though it's a solid move, it also weakens the white squares. He wanted to put his king on f7, perhaps. Maybe it's good enough. I don't think it was an outright blunder or anything. Just gives me some chances on the white squares. Obviously white is going to play like knight, or rather bishop c5. I could have played knight to d6 check there, forcing exchange into an ending where, well, objectively, it was probably slightly better for black. I don't know. I feel like my isolated pawn has to be slightly better for black. in a pure knight ending where I don't have any other, or a pure ending where the pieces are balanced, I should say. If I play knight d6, I let him trade his bad bishop for a knight, and I think that's a mistake here. I should be playing with these two knights against bishop. So I don't want to let him trade that off. This is my best hope for the position, basically. Knight for knight is one thing, but to trade his bad bishop off is a different story. So that's where I'm at on that. On that topic, yeah, I don't mind this exchange too much, but I don't want to see the dark square bishop getting exchanged for my knight. Even c4, somewhat debatable. Two good knights. Okay, good knight versus bad bishop. We've got a queenside majority, which could really be an advantage. Maybe this pawn break at some point. You might call it a minority attack. I thought the black should have played h3 for sure there. Because now things, it's like a lockdown. Could have fixed my pawn on h2, created some complications. So I think white is better now. Perhaps this is still defensible for black, but it looks unpleasant. Very unpleasant. Just to constantly watch for like forks. There's the pawn break g5. I'm going to take with a rook here. Should be good. That is without a doubt the best move. This pass pawn is quite powerful. Check. Surprise. Wow. Good game. Good game, Senor Shah. Royal Python is up next. Another tough game, no doubt. So I sort of techniqued my way to a victory there, but it wasn't a one-way battle. It looked like white was worse. White was worse after the later part of the opening. Knight f3 from Royal Python. You would have tried bishop c4, knight g5. Well, I could have played that, and maybe that was the best plan, Royal Python. I don't know. I didn't really find like a convincing line. It looked like in every line. It looked like in every line he had adequate defenses. Like if I play bishop c4, he plays bishop e6. If I play knight g5, I guess bishop e6. The double pawns on e6 would actually be, you know, as they often are, kind of beneficial to black. Maybe I should have played bishop e3 or bishop d2 and castle's queenside. Bishop e3 was interesting because it gives me some ability to use the b6 square, maybe for a knight or bishop with a check on b6 or knight to b6. Okay, Royal Python now, c3. This is a highly unusual move, and I may have already had a game with this position against Royal Python. I'm not sure. But my typical system is, and he probably knows this, is to play e5. But I have seen some gambits with this d4 idea. And I don't recall if Royal Python has done that against me or not. But I think this may be in a book somewhere. Maybe it's a recommendation by some chess author. It's somewhat logical. I mean, you're against e5, you're maybe playing some sort of pawn sacrifice with d4. Although e5, d4, e4, or c takes d4, c takes d4, e4 actually looks promising for me. So maybe the answer isn't to take the pawn on d4. It would be to play e5, d4, cd, cd, e4, and then d5. No, this is new to me, he says. All right, let's try it. I'm not sure if his intention is to play d4. Some people have done this kind of gambit against me, or pawn sacrifice. No, he just reverts to a more usual e4 formation. So now we're going to play knight e7, develop as quickly as we can. So-called Botvinnik formation for black is now quick knight a3, knight c2. And you notice that white isn't playing d3. He said this is new to me, but so he's just like playing the same as yesterday, like super fast. I never realized, Royal Python, that you played so quickly in the past. I never really noticed how to describe it, like how other than quickly, how little you really think on your moves. So d5 here. Problem is now d6, d4. If I play d5 instead, it would pose more direct problems, I would think. Then I end up playing a position I wasn't really prepared to play. But I think this is the way to try to take advantage of this knight a3, knight c2 thing. I have to be willing to play a setup, you know, not be dogmatic. My normal setup is d6, and I don't play d5. But in this particular situation, I'm probably better off doing d5. If I do d6, he does d4. I've been there before, and it's not really good for black. So playing d5, see what happens. Now he plays d3, and that leaves him in a kind of passive situation. So we're happy now. I mean, he didn't get to play this active type of plan with d4, which is what we didn't want. So now he's got this position that looks like a standard King's Indian attack, but his knight is on a bit of an odd square on c2. So he doesn't have the best looking King's Indian attack in the world. Could play d4, but I think it closes the position rather early. Is this a threat to play knight e3? Probably not a big deal. But I think the slower I played, the more I'm kind of encouraging Royal Python to play super fast so he can try to beat me on time or something. Yesterday was really exaggerated. I let him have like a 6-1 or 6-2 time advantage really early after like 15 moves. So I think that's going a little too far. I shouldn't let him have a massive advantage on the clock. We need to be a little bit more reasonable. But if you guys are wondering, I'm not really playing rated games because obviously the time situation is disadvantageous as I'm spending a lot of my time describing my thoughts and even giving away my thoughts to some of my opponents in some cases. We're rather avoiding rated games. So now knight e3. And we could consider avoiding the exchange of pieces here because the knight on e3 is kind of in the way. So I wouldn't balk if you played knight c7 here. But I kind of feel like I need to develop as well. It's open to interpretation. We basically transpose to something that looks almost like the standard position for the fianchetto King's Indian with colors reversed. You'd have a normal King's Indian defense, white plays the fianchetto setup, and black exchanges on d4 at some point relatively early on. I think that Royal Python's position is pretty close to that, although he might have lost the tempo. It looks like he lost the tempo. He played knight a3, knight c2, knight e3, and now if he plays knight c4, that's a lot of time really to have spent on this. So rook e8, reinforcing my pawn. I don't recall if he's played the King's Indian attack against me before. Kyria Kospez, welcome to the stream. It is a Botvinnik system. We got this from training with Mark Dvoretsky, the famous Russian trainer of Yusupov and many other great players. Mark recommended to me to play this against the King's Indian attack. It's definitely one of Black's best systems. Now Queen c2 is a square I usually prefer e2. Here he doesn't want to go against the rook on e8. So we have this piece sacrifice, and sometimes in these positions with knight b4, be aware. If my development was better here, I would seriously consider the positional piece sacrifice, knight b4. Pawn takes b4, knight takes b4, and knight takes d3. But I'm not sure I'm really well enough developed to pull that off in this position. Queen d7 looks like the normal quote-unquote move here. My personal feeling, I don't like putting my queen on c2 in the King's Indian, or c7. It's usually not the best. Now here, this will stop the knight b4 type of ideas. Could have played rook c8. Interesting sort of cheapos against his queen. A2 is unprotected. That might get interesting. If I try to grab that with a bishop, the piece could get trapped with b3 or something. So I don't think I'm going to be snapping that pawn right away. He'll just play b3, trap my bishop. We have interesting possibilities here. Be g5 and build up on the king's side. going to play a solid move, pass. So the practical royal python is able to consolidate. Again, we're looking at piece sacrifices with knight to b4. He played queen b1. I was expecting bishop c1. So I think it's time to think about grabbing some space here on the king side. Kind of typical fianchetto King's Indian. Guys, we're streaming for another hour. Welcome, Shevaninga. What do you think about Tiger and Petrosian game style? Yeah, Shevaninga's asking for clarification. Well, if we want to talk about Petrosian in general terms, he was one of the best players in history, but his style was very positional. Really not very tactical, so you have to appreciate his endgame skills, strategic ideas, sacrifices of the exchange for purely like strategic goals. If you prefer strategy and positional play to tactics, then you're in business. They're asking me if I'm coming to play poker tonight. Yes, I am. Miklos. Knight h4. Now, this is a little different here, Royal Python. Don't get carried away. He's getting carried away. Knight h4 provoking me on the king side. Well, if you're going to provoke me, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and oblige you. I think that's a little over the top. I mean, g5 is a useful move anyway. You guys notice that Facebook started to send like messages even when you don't have it open? Bishop takes d5. Did I miss something here? That's really crazy. Royal Python had the same hallucination I did, I think. I swear I had the same hallucination he did. So, that is so strange. I think he hallucinated. He had some sort of tactic. I was looking at various things like, can he do knight takes f5 or bishop takes d5? And one line I was confusing in my head. But let's be careful here, because yesterday I won the exchange and I almost lost. Do we have anything better? b5. Winning a clear pawn. So that white square bishop you can't give up ever. Maybe for my bishop, and even then you've got to be careful your king side isn't too weak. All right. Poker tonight. Friday night, man. It's my day off from chess. What do we do? Double up? Oh man, I'm going to blunder if I do that. Wow. Rook takes rook is probably recommended. Rook d8, rook takes rook, bishop, or knight e1, and I like lose the exchange. I'd probably have some compensation, but we don't really want to lose it. So Harrison Ford is in Budapest. For those of you that don't know, I'm living in Budapest, streaming from Budapest most of the year. Hungary. Knight takes e3. So this is a threat here too. We don't want any problems with that. We'll just go ahead and play f4. Which really cramps white. Advancing our pawn majority. And the king is going to be really bottled up with that bishop on f3. Good morning and good day. Do I have something better than winning a clear pawn? What a luxury problem. Yeah, I don't know. Royal Pantheon just went totally berserk. Like, it was really weird. He just went berserk with, like, bishop takes d5 for no reason. I think it was a hallucination. I think he just hallucinated he had a tactic and then was like, oh, never mind. There's no other explanation. I mean, he knows better than to trade a valuable, like, bishop. So hallucination is the only explanation, or a mouse slip. But I think that, you know, he went astray with knight h4. You're just basically inducing me to make a pawn storm advance that I probably would do anyway. It's a natural expansion for black on the king side anyway in these setups, so yeah, here, well, my dark square bishop is not that great, honestly, so I was thinking bishop f8. Bishop f8 and rook d8. It's not that great, but it does control some squares. Sort of dominate the knight on f8. I was a little concerned about rook e1 there, so I don't mind you doing that. I don't mind you making that exchange. You no longer have rook e1 with pressure on my pawn. This ending is really good for me. King f7. I don't see any problem here. Very, very subtle threat. Got a time advantage now. He missed it. Knight is all alone. Nobody to help him. Help. Help me. I'm drowning. Drowning in the white squares. WGM Alexandra Asit passes. There's a new challenger, Lonely Master, Bipolar Andrea, and another new player, Borkan. Borkan, your increment is too big. I don't know that we'll get that many games in, but it's possible if someone drops or something. So we're challenging, accepting challenges between 5-3 and 8-3. So if you can find a challenge between 5-3 and 8-3 without an increment that big, I mean, 8 seconds is really too big an increment. So 5-5. If you like 5 minutes, then do 5-5. You can re-challenge me to 5-5. We're black against WGM Alexandra. I don't think I'm going to play the classical Sicilian again after the first game when white uncorked a powerful novelty in the Bishop D7 classical Richter Rouser. Exoy says, how can I challenge you? You just click on my name on lichess, I think. There are various ways you can do it. If you click on my name and like you can challenge to a game, it should be an option in the menu there. How can we challenge? We've got two guys. You guys explain. Can somebody explain to them exactly how to challenge me? You would click on my name on lichess. Let's try something different. A Caro Kann against Alexandra. I have a terrible record with the Caro Kann here on the stream. It feels like, anyway, like in my simuls and stuff. But it's nice to get a break from the Sicilian. Maybe I should play e4, e5. Alexander plays the critical line, one of the critical lines. I mean, either the main line with knight c3 or knight d2 or e5, I think are the most critical. I've been playing c5. Bishop f5 is the more common variation against the advanced Caro. I thought maybe we could catch Alexander without as much preparation in this line, perhaps. So knight f3. Knight f3, knight c6. We had a similar game. Actually, who's not here is Guitar Player. He's not here today. And now d takes c. And I guess e6 is the simplest for black in this position. We could play bishop g4 though. It's worth considering the move bishop g4. Getting this piece outside the pawn chain, trading it off. But I think objectively e6 e6 looks solid. Generally speaking, I think after e5, c5, if d takes c right away, e6 is probably one of the best moves for black. So we kind of have that position as if I played e6. White played knight f3, and then I played knight c6. And then white took on c5. Although there I would have bishop takes c5. It would be a little different. Bishop e3, that's probably theory when I could play either knight h6 or knight e7. But we'll have to consult the French IM, who's a Caro-Kann expert here on lichess. Again, I forgot his handle. Not really playing the Caro-Kann. I'm not really playing the Caro-Kann as like a tournament, on a tournament level of preparation. So I like to play it here on the stream. But I can't say it's like a really serious opening for me. Alexander played a very high level game against me the first game with extreme knowledge of the opening, and then messed up the ending. In the second game I played with this account yesterday, black played strangely with a strange move in the opening, but then recovering and, although slightly worse, able to get a draw. c3, knight f5, and bishop d4. It's like Alexander knows all the theory. Now, it kind of feels like I should sack a pawn here with b6. Maybe it's too much though. b6, too much weakness on the white squares for me. I guess I can defend b6, bishop e5, bishop d7, and then if queen a4, queen c7, now that walks into pawn takes pawn. Probably have to play queen a4, queen c8. Actually looks okay for black. I am down a pawn there. No, pawn takes pawn, the queen is attacked. Yeah, this is interesting. But this is a totally... Evelyn Wow is... Whoa. Waugh. Actually, I had a friend named Turner Waugh. Maybe a relative. Caro-Kann bishop should not be outside a pawn chain. It should be outside the pawn chain. You think not playing bishop g4 is a huge mistake. This is not a typical position. Black has to be very, very careful because I played c6, c5 in two moves. I'm a little bit behind in development, and you've got to be very careful about that. It can be turned against you. If you get too aggressive with bishop g4, sometimes white can play very quickly like c4 and open up the white squares on the queen side. So, although you're right theoretically, grueling stance, again, like you can't be dogmatic. You have to be taking every position into consideration. So you're absolutely right in principle. It's just that oftentimes, that bishop on c8, its absence creates a lot of weaknesses for black on b7 and c6 and b5 and the whole white square complex on the queen side. So I would love to play bishop g4. It's just that I'm not sure if it's safe or not to do that when I'm so far behind in development. C takes b6. Now, we could take on d4. But I guess keeping the tension doesn't have any concrete disadvantage here. Pawn takes pawn. But actually, if we took with the knight on d4, we have the additional possibility of queen takes b6. Probably not a big deal. Yeah, it's really looking like I don't have enough compensation for the sacrificed pawn in this line. White played queen b3 now. Well, I think I have to take on d4 at this point. We don't want to make a ridiculous move. Prefer this knight. And we have bishop b4 check, which is a nice tempo. We have a dark squared bishop now that white does not have. We have a little lead in development. So looking like we have some sort of compensation for the sacrificed pawn. Not sure if it's enough though. I have to be careful here. Is this even really good? I mean, bishop check. Forcing her or him, we don't really know, to play knight on bd2 or knight c3. Knight c3 is possible too, actually. I'm just assuming knight bd2 for some reason. I could just make a solid move, like bishop d7. Keep my dark squared bishop. I think that bishop b4 is probably a bit of an artificial plan. That's my good bishop. I need it for defense. So I'm probably better served by trying to play another active plan. This is actually also good in terms of knight a5, and you can play Petrosian style. Earlier someone mentioned Petrosian, so Petrosian liked to play the Caro-Kann with the bishop on d7 in some instances. Believe it or not, for those of you who don't like bishops on d7. Knight c3. Knight a5 doesn't seem to bring us anything, any real benefit, so I'm aiming for development here. Got to play as actively as possible. We're behind on the clock. I have one interesting possibility. If white tries to play bishop d3, we might have knight to b4, harassing that bishop, disorganizing white a little bit. Something that white has to keep in mind. Hoping this base of the white pawn chain ends up being a little bit weak. Now rook c1. In my book, that looks a little routine. We're castled. White is not. We have knight a5 with play on the queen side in some lines. Maybe knight a5, b5. And now that's the point. So almost like Alexander was listening and said, look, I played this rook c1 so that I can play bishop d3 and get back. I think we go with f6. We try to bust it open here. While the king is still in the center. I'm not afraid of queen c2 or something like that. You go for it. Maybe even piece sacrifices with knight takes d4 and pawn takes e5 are in the air here. We've got a dark square bishop you don't, which is a very valuable asset. So I'm not saying white is worse or in danger, but white has to be careful. Black has counterplay in this position. It's more like a French than a Caro-Kann. 100% French defense. Why did you not represent America for the Baku Chess Olympiad? Yeah. I think I have a better chance of qualifying for the Hungarian team. Much better chance. I'd have to change my federation. Have to talk to Kirsan about that because, yeah, we're good buddies. Yesterday's game against WGM, not yesterday's, it was Wednesday. I keep saying yesterday, but yesterday I didn't get to play this player. 2 days ago I played C3. DST, we have a wacky Wednesday thematic day where I'm starting to play some different openings and stuff. So weird openings on Wednesdays. We played C3 against WGM Alexandra and kind of tripped them up with transposing them into a queen's gambit. Bishop there now. Looks like white is trying to go full Nimzovich here. With this not having the king in the center looks really interesting. Two bishops. F2 is weak. Queen h4 is not playable. It'd be nice to have that move. Bishop h4 is an idea. So unfortunately, we are on the defensive here. The Nimzovichian strategy. F4 could come into play. Let's negate that possibility. Stay as active as possible. We have a backward pawn. We're down a pawn. White has two knights against two bishops. Semi-closed position. What do we call this? It's not really open. It's sort of open, but it's sort of locked at the same time. The two knights are pretty powerful here, I want to say. Maybe bishop d6, giving my queen some squares. Possible tactics with these bishops. To watch out for knight takes d5 sacrifices. Doesn't work here for white though. My bishops have pretty good range. This is the ideal defensive bishop. And then this position where we could sack the exchange. Just be down an exchange. So I have queen g5. Walking into tactics. After that, I mean, White has an incredible bind on the position. I'm going to try to hold this with the two bishops. If I allow White to play f4, I feel like I'm positionally lost. It may not be necessary, but this looks like a decent defensive chance for Black. We have practical. Practical is the word. Practical chances. White's play pretty close to flawless. Positional. Excellent opening play. Here I have to be careful. Practical chances only. Objectively, White is winning here. Win an exchange back. Looks like a draw. Something wrong with my mouse. I had the mouse problem again, man. This, see, that's why we need more PayPal donations with the mouse. Got stuck again. I managed to rescue it before we lost on time. Wow, what a game. Alexandra, Alexandra, clearly master strength player. We don't know who it is. We had to play for a draw. We should have lost. So Alexandra doesn't chat. Anonymous account. This game was super play, like Nimzovich style. So we have a master strength opponent there. Alright, 2089 Alexandra, based on 22 games, some of them disconnections against much lower rated players. Clearly, this game was like a Nimzovich masterclass or something. Very fortunate not to lose. And our mouse gets frozen again at the end. I have to take out the battery and actually put it back in. Alright, so Asi passes. I think Asi passes was next. Bipolar disorder will donate when I win in the lottery because I'm poor. Well, that's a good attitude, man. But thanks for letting me know. And I appreciate it. So we will play something different today. It will be... We already had one donation toward the new mouse, though. So we're almost there. One or two more small donations will contribute to the mouse fund. It still works fine, but once in a while the battery, I guess, gets displaced, and then I have to take 10 seconds to take it out. Overall, though, I hate to replace it because it really works fine otherwise. It's not a WGM up-and-comer. It has given itself that title that is not an official lichess title. I would lean toward thinking it was probably a guy, because if it was a real WGM or even a real woman, I kind of think that they wouldn't make their handle like WGM, whatever, you know. So more likely it's a guy than a woman, I would think, unless it really is a WGM who doesn't know how to, I don't know, contact lichess, and there's a small chance it really is a WGM Alexandra. But if it's not, then I would say it's more likely it's a guy, because a woman wouldn't go out of their way to advertise, you know, they were a woman necessarily. That's my personal guess, but I don't know. I think it's a fan of, it's probably like a tribute account to a strong woman player or something, but it certainly could be a woman. I just don't think they would choose that as their name unless they were really a WGM. And in that case, why wouldn't they contact lichess to really be a WGM on the account, on the site? Euro lottery at 13.5 million euros. So bipolar disorder, I hope if you do win the lottery, you make a substantial donation to the stream. I mean, I'm asking like $5, $10 donations, but if you win the lotto, I think you could make it 3 digits. Alright, D3, we've got the ability to play D5. This is something that I would be more likely to play. I would be more comfortable playing with white when I had another tempo, because I often play this kind of position in the English opening with colors reversed. I think having the extra tempo, we could play something like D5, H6, and ideally even like G5 and knight G6 or something like that. But when you're black, you really have to be a little more circumspect. So although D5 is a move that I can play with tempo, I'm not sure. I really prefer it to a more solid approach like d6. He says, relax, I'm generous. Guys, if I win a lotto, you won't have to worry about making donations. How about that? D3. It'd be easier for me. Just let me win the lotto, and then we don't have to worry about it. D3. Don't trust the Hungarian lotto, though. I don't think I'm going to go there. I'll play, like, the American lottery. I don't even know if that's honest, but I definitely don't trust the Hungarian. Oh, Szerencs játék. Alright, wasting a lot of time here. This is standard position. We've seen it a lot, and I've had kind of bad results, I feel like, against this. So, just d6. What do you guys think about just simply d6? Kind of conservative approach. Very hot. Saronche, did you say it's going to get cooler? Don't trust the lottery. Well, all my years of playing internet poker, and I don't really gamble in other ways. I don't even do sports betting. Occasionally I'll bet on like American football, but very occasionally. Not really a gambler. I like gambling, but I'm not really a gambler by nature. My chess style should attest to that. I mean, I like to have control over my destiny. Rook e1, and that's not really that good here. I guess it's not a bad move, but oftentimes you later on want to play like f4 maybe. So you can argue sometimes the rook is better on f1. If you can reorganize your pieces and play for f4, f5. Again, I don't think it's a terrible move though. I mean, it discourages me from playing d5. It's a semi-useful move, rook e1. Now just because I didn't play d5 right away doesn't mean I'm never going to play d5. I may play d5 later, at a later time, if the situation is right. But if you guys want to play closed type setup against the English or against the Sicilian, this setup isn't bad. Actually, I've come to have more respect for it since I've been facing it, this type of setup, a lot on the stream. And I used to be very dismissive of this kind of thing. I mean, it's not obviously very aggressive for white. It's not going to get you like a clear advantage out of the opening, like you might get in some lines of the open Sicilian if black makes a mistake. But if you like closed positions, this setup with bishop c4 is interesting. I think, as I said before, the most common thing would be like knight f3, d6, and bishop c4. That's the situation where it's the most playable. But against g6, bishop c4, this actually is a pretty good variation. I didn't mention here that after bishop g7, he should probably play c3. This variation is much more dynamic than knight to c3. Alright, now ultra aggressive move from Asi Passes here, h4, a la Shirov. So, well, honestly, man, I was thinking about playing h6 anyway. So we'll play h6. And play g5 if you decide to play h5. How do you like US making money? What? If the lotto was sent out of the country, that would be literally pulling everyone's money together to send it out of the country. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Anyway, guys, I'm going to be back on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central European Summertime, otherwise known as CEST, 6 p.m. for a simul. I'm doing a simul every week on Sundays, so stop by. Get here right at 6, Scheveningen, if you want to play, because I'm usually on time. If I'm going to be late, I always try to like leave a note on the Twitch account or something, but usually it fills up really fast if you guys want to play in my simul. So it takes about 2.5 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours. So don't play unless you're serious about playing a long game in my Sunday Simul. Guys, silence. You can also check out my videos on my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training. And if you're interested in lessons, we're always getting people taking lessons, quitting lessons. A lot of turnover, so you can almost certainly be assured I have availability for teaching new students. If you're interested, send me an email, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. Now, bishop f4, this is pretty good. It's, you got to be careful not bishop e3 dropping a piece to d5, d4. Bishop f4 is the best square. It's sort of hanging out. It doesn't have any concrete threats, but it's sort of like if I play d5, it's in a good sort of situation. It controls the e5 square. E5 is also possible, though it weakens my position a bit. We have to make a decision. I'm going to play e5, and I can play bishop e6. So we're going to transition to a different pawn structure here. It's looking like some kind of double king pawn. Joko piano now. As I said, rook on e1 doesn't look that good. It would prefer to probably be on f1. We have maybe the idea of bishop g4 suddenly. That's a big question then. Do we play bishop g4 with the idea of knight to d4? Whoops, the arrow's in the wrong place. Bishop g4, very difficult pin for white to get out of. The problem is he might remain with a very powerful white squared bishop that's unopposed. So I don't know if I want to play, but we're going to try it. His bishop here is real questionable on h2. I don't know if this piece is going to get back in the game. Is this going to get back in the game ever in this kind of position? Difficult to say. I think that, well, he should have thought of this before he played bishop f4. I'm kind of distracted and talking about all different stuff all the time, so it's hard for me to contiguously like think about things logically every moment. But I should have mentioned that really I said bishop f4 was okay, but it's okay, I would say, if he had played h3. Having played h4 maybe a little too much here. If this pawn had been on h3, then bishop f4 would have been a lot more rational. Alright, so we're taking, he gets out of the pin. We have knight d4. This bishop is going to be really hard for him to get back in the game, as I said. This pawn on h4 is a weakness as well. Knight d4, difficult to defend against that. And I was thinking h5 to fix his pawn on the dark square there. I don't know if I have time for this or not. I don't really want him playing h5. If I play h5 myself, it will give ability to my bishop to go get active. And obviously you can see that has particular relevance after rook e3. So I think we're winning, and all that really remains is to get my king off the diagonal of this bishop on c4 and maybe reposition my knight on e7. However, what am I really threatening here? This is not the issue so much. He could take back with the pawn, but I think this is a bigger issue. Knight takes f3, ouch. Notice rook g1 is guarded against, and so white kind of combining aggressive plans that don't necessarily gel. h4, bishop f4. It didn't really work together very well. So we managed to most likely win the game despite this powerful bishop on c4 looking really good. That's only one facet of the position. It wasn't enough for white. The bishop got shut down. Weaknesses in the king side. Actually, white's king side ended up. Everything's protected. White's king side ended up weaker than mine. This pawn would eventually been a target for my pieces as well. So h4 was maybe a little too radical. I think you should just play h3 and bishop f4 and hang out. That's the kind of setup that we faced a lot, and it's kind of annoying for black to deal with, I would say. What was a Chucky quote? Join the hosted simul at the sundial at 1800 hours. Don't mention that it's military time. Just an inside joke from this morning. Okay, Lonely Master, Bipolar Disorder, Andrea Perrone. I think we're going to play 2 games at this point until my stream is over. Unless one of them is very quick. Lonely Master is a new opponent. Welcome. Welcome to my stream, man. Or woman. You could be. Either. It's the internet. Everyone's anonymous. But I really appreciate you guys who aren't anonymous, because it's not fun. I mean, it's more fun knowing who you guys are, and do you really need to protect your chess identity? I'm open about mine. Knight to c6. Okay, yesterday we had another Rosalimo, which was interesting. g6. I think g6 should and is probably considered the main, should be and is considered the main line. We faced knight d4 yesterday against, in our last game against Guitar Player, who's one of the moderators here on the stream. But I think this line with g6 and bishop g7 is much more reliable for black. Lonely Master, man, I don't know how good you are. You're from Brazil? Well, if you were a poker player, I'd be concerned. This was a poker tournament. So many good players from Brazil. They're good at chess too, though. Lots of strong players from Brazil. There was the time that I played in a tournament. I was hanging out with Rafael Leitao, and I tried for 1,000,000 times to pronounce his name, but he said I could never get it right. c3. This is standard. Other approaches you can play, like knight c3, rook e1, bishop takes c6 unprovoked. Asipessa says, thanks for the game, sacked the queen on purpose. Thought I had a cool tactic, but you didn't see. No tactics. We're not as secretive. We are nobodies. Well, we're all nobodies compared to somebody. Never forget that. Queen b6. And we have a kind of hybrid variation. Yesterday we saw queen b6 really early on move 3, right? No, I'm crazy. He played knight d4. Never mind. Anyway, queen b6 is a move that black could play right away, too. Also a kind of sideline. I don't think that my theoretical knowledge of the Rosalimo is very deep. We play mostly on general principles, and from years of practice playing with black, queen b6, normally, I don't think I want to trade here after having played the move c3. This is a kind of subtle positional idea, but when you play c3, you kind of weaken your white squares in the position, so you don't want a bishop coming in like dominating all those white squares. Generally speaking, having played c3, I don't want to give that bishop up anymore, unless I have a really good reason to do so. So I wish my rook was on e1. I could retreat the bishop back to f1 where it's pretty compactly placed. Okay, we can play bishop a4, knight a3. I like knight a3. I'm sure... Oh, Geese isn't here, one of our Dutch regulars. He likes to play knight a3 on move 2. So he'd particularly appreciate this position. We got sun lasers on the webcam. But it's not too bad. I'm gonna get a tan. I know, I can just feel it like burning my head. I don't speak Portuguese. I don't know if he's hablo español, pero poquito. I don't know any Portuguese. I actually have a student from Brazil, and I'm always joking with him. But Portuguese to me doesn't sound anything like Spanish. I know that they're pretty far apart. I mean, although distant relatives. When I hear someone speaking Portuguese, this is going to sound funny, but I don't know if anyone else has experienced this. It almost sounds like Russian. I mean, it's really weird. Its closest relative, I guess, is Spanish, but when I hear them speaking in videos and on TV in Portuguese, to me, for some reason, it sounds more like Russian than anything else. Man, I hate to play bishop e2. That's a kind of stupid-looking square. Bishop a4. Maybe bishop a4. Sometimes you can trap the queen in positions like this with something like, maybe it works, knight c4, queen takes b5. Interesting possibility. I don't think it's gonna work. So I don't know where to put my bishop. Tough call. I don't like the square because I know I'm going to have to move it again. That's the point. I mean, why I really don't like it. But I felt on a4 it was going to get hit by this avalanche of pawns. You could also put it on d3, which is a square I'm particularly not fond of. So I think as long as my bishop's on e2, black's position seems pretty reasonable. Knight f6. e5 or knight c4 or d3. I'm down about so what do you think, Panic, about the difference between the sound of Portuguese and Spanish? Why do I think that people are saying words in Russian when I hear Portuguese? It's so weird. Rook e1, knight c4, e5. And knight c4, I feel like, just drives his queen back to a good square. We have a really lame opening here. Got absolutely nothing. Very, very lame. It's kind of like what Royal Python had, but worse. Because he at least had a King's Indian where his bishop was on g2, and I have this kind of old Indian set up now. Perhaps I should play e5. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I needed to play e5 there. d3 is weak. e5 was a much, much better move. Not like anything crushing. I mean, black has a totally playable game, I guess, after knight to g4 or knight to d5. d4 is still not possible. And that's the tempo I'm talking about. I had to lose a move to play this bishop, to move this bishop twice. Black lost a move with queen c7 too, but I like the way the black's playing this game. Totally reasonable. And even if I get the ideal pawn center, my pieces aren't exactly well placed. Knight on a3 particularly is not very well placed. Portuguese sounds like Romanian. I never thought about that. Yeah, Soltiego, I'm not a big fan of the Kopeck system. Rest in peace, Danny. I never was a fan of your opening system. It always felt wrong to me to put the bishop on d3. Sorry, man. No disrespect intended. Portuguese from Portugal pronounces E like SH. The sh sounds, maybe that's what it is. Kind of typical sound in Russian. E5. So, a game very similar to my game with Mr. Royal Python. It could be a old Indian attack, we could call it. Black has got a perfectly equal game. D5 aggressive. That's kind of what I did. I'm not from Hungary, but I do live here. D5 is a good move. Maybe we should play bishop g5. Trying to kind of wrest control over the d5 square. And black is fully equal, probably slightly better. So my lack of experience or expertise in the Rossolimo here is showing. End up with this really backward bishop on f1. Masterful play so far, I think, by black. Takes. Let's try something. Gotta be careful about this bishop on g5. Why did I do that? Oh my god, I blundered. Never mind. I blundered positionally. It wasn't a tactical blunder, but we blundered positionally. Now we have a really silly looking position. That bishop will get trapped. I have to retreat it. And Lonely Master, another new account. No idea. He's got 11 games in Blitz. He's playing excellent chess here. So we're looking silly. I need to free my position, but I don't really have a clue how I'm going to do that here. Two minutes and we're sort of getting squashed by Lonely Master's technical display of Botvinnik, the Botvinnik pawn formation. I don't think he was here for the earlier game where I was black in the same pawn formation. Maybe he was watching, I don't know. Black is, I want to say close to clearly better in this position. Because if I had just one exchange of pieces, I think that white would be just a little bit worse. But despite the fact that I don't have a lot of weaknesses, really just d3, there's very little that white can do in this position. So I would choose to play black 10 out of 10 times in the above position. I'll take black any day of the week. Played very, very poorly, wasting time with bishop e2, bishop f1. Not recommended, guys. We're going to play one more game after this game, however it ends. Arca plan. I don't think we're going to get to that. Andrea will be the last game. Yesterday, somebody... Oh, it was theoretical, I think, who didn't get to play. So good practical move. Knight f4 was really aggressive, but maybe a little over the top. Could play knight c4 there, maybe try to trade it off. Although knight f4, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know, honestly, that was a more aggressive move. Knight e7, a little bit conservative. Still, it looks like black is good here. I need to free my position somehow, but how? Without the ability to trade any pieces, I can't play d4. It's looking kind of ugly. A very awkward situation now. Knight c4. With no threat whatsoever. We have no threat whatsoever. You played b5. Okay. Well, we just did it to induce you to weaken yourself. And now everything. He's throwing everything at me. Perhaps we could find some counterplay with d4 in some situations. I don't see it happening. We're getting pushed off the board, basically. Getting pushed off the board. Highly unpleasant position. Is there any hope here? Knight takes knight, pawn, f4. Try for some play against the bishop on e6. But Lonely Master clearly a very strategic master, shall we say? I'm just hoping that I have minimal weaknesses in my position. I haven't even played g3. It's not even a King's Indian attack. That's kind of good. That would be a really significant weakening in my position. Not playing g3 could maybe save white in this sort of situation. One less pawn weakness. I'm not a big fan. I said it again, man. I'm trying to swear that off. That will be my New Year's resolution. Not to say I'm not a big fan of things. Just not using the same phrase repeatedly will be my new goal, but I'm still not really fond of my position. F4. And our king side is pretty loose. Well, we can take here. It may not be that bad. Look at the bright side. We may be alright here. I thought he had another line that was a little scarier for me. So I thought knight takes e5, honestly, with the idea of knight takes e5 with the idea of knight takes d3 maybe was critical. This way, maybe white's just okay. I have something of a bad bishop, but maybe I'm just better now. I don't want to overestimate my position, but his king now looking more open than mine. I could play g3, activate my bishop with bishop g2. So I'm fortunate to be alive, first of all. He overlooked this tactic. Pick up 2 pieces for a rook. And white is clearly better. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy for me to win or something. d4. Without the ability to have an open file for his rooks, he's got a lot of them, it's going to be hard for black to fight back. Those rooks need an open file, and their open file is shut down. So queen g5, trying to trade queens. I don't really want to trade queens, but I don't mind. This should be a tactically winning position for white. We're trying to freeze his queenside pawns, so you're wondering what I'm doing. Maybe we can win a pawn there. Knight e6 check. My knight gets kind of out of position. Let's just pass on that. Hit king f6. I didn't think it was that clear. Nice. Nice D, man. Defending himself against the threat of h5. And then we have the interesting possibility of h5 here. Going after my pawn, huh? Rook there, check. Too much material. We'll just hide on the other side of the pawn. I'm threatening knight f7. Too many pieces and pawns. Alright, man, tough game. You were almost winning after the opening. Last game, Andrea Peroni were a little bit over time, but I kind of promised this game, so I'm gonna stick with it. Andrea, overtime as usual. Mr. Lonely. He really played well in the opening and early middle game. Then didn't react the best. Okay, opening request for the sake of expediency. Andre asked for Chigor and Roy Lopez. Anyway, I would play that, to be honest. I would play the main line, normally in the Lopez. So black perhaps didn't react to the knight takes e5 pseudo-sacrifice as best he could. We were very fortunate in a couple games today against this very scary account, WGM. Alexandra, we were lost down a pawn, didn't really get enough compensation, and survived. And now this last game against Lonely Master. So this is the Chigorin variation, knight a5. We had a game against Royal Python yesterday. What he didn't play, something was wrong with the move order here. I didn't play h3. And now black's dropping a pawn. So this move order, c3. After c3, castles. You need to castle first. You play knight a5 too early. You have to castle first, then I play h3, then you play knight a5. You've played it so that I didn't have to play h3, which I think some strong players have done, including perhaps myself, if I can classify as a strong player. By accident has happened. You have to castle before knight a5, and then I play h3, then you play knight a5. Looks like black is pretty much busto here. Trading queens, I'm a pawn up, and really no real practical hope for black. So guys, we're going to be back after this game Sunday with a stream where I'm going to do a simul on lichess. Andrea now sacrificing a piece here, which is crazy, but he was in trouble anyway. It's too much. Be careful with your move order. I've done that in blitz before, although I don't normally play the black side of the Lopez too much. I've been trying to play it lately, from here from time to time. But be careful with your move order. The problem is after knight a5, bishop c2, I no longer need to play h3. h3 is not critical if white hasn't played d4 yet. Right. But I need to play h3 to prepare d4. Because if I play d4 right away, after castles, you know, it's another variation. If I play d4 right away, you play bishop g4, and we're playing a much different type of position. That's another interesting line. I mean, and it's quite important theoretically too, where white doesn't play h3. Sack the queen for several pieces here. Or not. Pseudo-sacrifice. It's a pseudo-sacrifice. Or temporary sacrifice. We get the material back. 3 pieces up. Chess is easy. And get all the guys in the game. Alright guys, so Sunday simul promptly at 6 p.m. Central European summertime. I'll never say that. I can't wait till the time change when I can stop having to say that. It's too many letters, too many words describing a time zone. 3 letters is enough. 4 letters for a time zone is just too much. G4. It's all good. We really should be able to mate black here with 3 extra pieces. Legal's mate on h7 perhaps. I appreciate you guys coming and joining me. We do recommend you check out our YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Thanks to Saronche for moderating today. If it wasn't for you, man, I don't know what we would have done. You know, to keep those trolls in line. It's hot as hell here in Europe. I don't know how it is where you are, Andrea, but Saronche in the Netherlands, it seems to be widespread heat in all of Europe. And we will play for mate here. Maybe the rain is coming. Local time here in Hungary. Because everybody knows. Obviously everybody knows the local Hungarian time. Alright. Just kidding around, guys. We'll see you on Sunday for my simul, and then again we'll restart the weekly cycle of Blitz and Classical Chess, Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. CEST. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.